If you're enjoying the Health Geeks Book Club podcast, we'd appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, leave a like, rating, or review, whichever your preferred podcatcher platform allows.
This edition of our podcast is brought to you by 360 Health and Well Balanced Nutrition.
Welcome to the Health Geeks Book Club podcast. Listen in as Kristen Norton and Eleanor Russell review all those great health and wellness books you've been wanting to read or you have read and want to talk about. Here's Kristen and Eleanor.
This is the book discussion that can keep on going. Eleanor and I are super excited and pumped up about the book, The Gospel of Wellness by Rina Raphael. Gems, Gurus, Goop, and the False Promise of Self-Care. We've been diving into several of the issues and topics here. Hopefully you've been following along. If not, go back and listen to the other episodes.
Maybe you'll find one that interests you.
That's right. We've talked a little bit about nutrition so far. We've talked about the history of the quote-unquote wellness movement and the pressures that we have on our shoulders. And today we're going to dive into a little bit of the other dimensions of wellness, like spirituality and fitness. And it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I think this book is about how women fell victim to wellness marketing, the trends. In some of these episodes we've talked about fads.
Yeah.
We tend to just jump on the fad wagon and go. And it's propaganda at some level. And she mentions early in the book a story about Elizabeth Holmes, which we have spoken about her in another episode too. She was a 19-year-old that was at Stanford or something like that and came up with a lab diagnostic chip patch that you wore on your body, and it was supposed to do blood work really fast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and she conned a whole bunch of people. Well, she didn't. I don't know if she conned them or not, but she was found guilty of fraud, and it was a massive amount of money.
Because she was claiming she could get all this information
from a drop of blood.
Drop of blood.
Yeah, and it would be accurate. And it didn't work. It was kind of an interesting idea, and that's why it caught all these, what do they call people that invest in innovation? Those startup fund groups, got on board with her. Yeah. And that was the Silicon Valley's influence on health and wellness. And that kind of takes me over to Netflix. And the CEO at Netflix was talking about competing in the marketplace. He says, we're not competing against the other streamers. We're competing against sleep, and we're winning.
Yeah.
This binge watching.
I cringed when I read that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a crazy world out here, and trying to feel good in it is harder and harder for a lot of people.
So Rina talks about how, writing for Fast Company meant being on top of these wellness trends to see is this going to be a moneymaker for you, and how could this grow? And so I found it really fascinating to hear these inside stories of these companies who started up like Peloton and
Abby Love
Cycle.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know about SoulCycle. I knew about Peloton because of the COVID.
Oh, right.
And
I didn't know about SoulCycle either.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that was kind of news to me. Abby Love as the patron saint of the modern workout. And it was interesting. Michael Rolls came to mind when I was listening to Abby's story, or Allie Love, excuse me. She was in a car accident. Mm-hmm. And then she decided she was going to move her body. And Michael talked about his car accident and how
said it started with a decision.
Yeah, the recovery started with a decision. And so, anyway, the CEO of that company, Peloton, made a comment that just blew me away. He said, the dramatic slide in people's association with organized religion. This is a manufacturer of Peloton and exercise equipment. He's saying, there's been a dramatic slide in people's association with organized religion, but that is not to say that people still do not want guidance, ritual, identification, community, music, ceremony, spirituality, reflection, the stuff that usually happens on Sunday morning at church or in your synagogue. His solution is enter the instructor-led fitness class. The Star of David and the crucifix have been replaced with the branded T-shirt.
Eesh.
So there's a chapter in here called the Gym as Church. And I think we've been talking about our struggles in a society that's chaotic. And this CEO, Mr. Foley, was accurate. The organized religions have seen a decrease in the congregational sizes. That doesn't mean that there are not other faith-centered things happening, but the gym really has stepped up, or the studio.
Tried to fill that void.
And it's doing it pretty effectively, according to a lot of the stories she shared in there. But we read a book called The Switch, or not The Switch, excuse me. I'm going to take that back. It was the one about moving our bodies. And he talked about how important exercise is. Well, maybe it was The Switch.
Well, that was the one about fasting a little bit too.
And well, anyway, he talked about the high schoolers that went to school and did exercise in the morning before school, and it improved their academic records and their outlook on life and all. I do think movement is good for us. I think there is so much evidence that moving our bodies is a healthy thing to do.
Spark, that's what you're thinking of.
I was saying The Switch, but it was Spark. Yeah, great book. I love that book.
Yes.
And I don't want to discount in this conversation about gyms as bad because they're trying to be a church. There's some good that comes out of moving your body. And if going to a gym helps you do that, and you like the social interaction and you like the music, that could be okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't know if she was trying to paint it as a bad picture. Certainly there are not great communities of people, and she highlights that. But I personally think it's a good thing that exercise is no longer this.
You're not allowed to sweat as a woman.
You're not allowed to sweat as a woman, or it's just this pumping iron and it's really boring and no one wants to do it, so we don't do it. I feel like it's good that we're tying music to it, where, you've got someone
community
who's motivating you and saying
it's fun,
good things. Yeah, you've got community, you've got a little bit of friendly competition. If that gets people into exercise, that's good.
Yeah.
Can that be a bad thing?
How many books have we read in this journey of ours? Almost 2 years now, you guys. We're coming up soon. Where they show that exercise produces better results in many cases than pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
And that people are being prescribed. Just don't take that. To go exercise. Take a walk outside. This is, write a prescription for the exercise, or write a prescription for time with your rabbi. We read that in one of the books too. That idea of integrating the good side of wellness. So you mentioned it can be good, but I think as with any profession, there are good doctors, bad doctors, good lawyers, bad lawyers, good restaurants, bad restaurants, good teachers, bad teachers, people that hurt people and people that don't in their profession. So I don't want to, and I don't think Rina wants to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
So, but you can get in some of these gyms that she did that were not healthy, were not healthy. And the instructors at the front were having people do just bizarre things and with no fundamental understanding of why they were doing it, but you got to do it. And I look at the YMCA, and she finally brought the YMCA up later in the book, but I thought, boy, she's missing in her history lesson. That is a long-standing organization built on
community
and exercise.
And they've got a darn fun song, too.
The YMCA.
Yeah,
okay,
that's
our music editor here. Okay,
but the fact that she doesn't bring up things like the YMCA just reminds me,
but she did finally.
She's a New Yorker and lives in LA.
Well, and she's not Christian, because that's the Young Men's Christian Association.
Oh, that's true.
And she has a Jewish tradition, but she did. But when it started, it was back there in that early time when the people were influenced by their ministers to build healthy bodies to serve God. And so the YMCA started a long time ago out of that tradition of to be a good Christian, you have to have a healthy body. And when we looked at the Blue Zones, that Loma Linda group, that's different from the other zones, their thing was healthy bodies, healthy food, no drinking.
Because it was your body's your temple.
Temple, right, yeah, which is not a bad idea. I kind of like that. So the gyms where they're doing these extreme things that nobody can maintain, that's when it's like some of these it's like a fitness diet. how we talk about diet really just means what are you eating?
Right.
But in the common conversation, diet means an eating program.
Right, to lose weight.
Yeah, to
usually.
lose weight. So I think some of these gyms are like fitness diets, and you don't maintain.
Right.
You cannot live 40 years with that. And where I see wellness lifestyle is something that is maintained on a daily basis for many, many years.
That's right, but that's not sexy, and that's not something that sells. So that's why we're here talking about these commodified fitness industries and their crazy stories. So, you're right. It's things that aren't attainable. And I was so appalled when I read that, I don't know if it was a Soul Cycle or a similar instructor, but in his office, he had a poster that says, if people aren't asking you if you have an eating disorder, you're not fit enough or you're not doing it right.
Oh, yeah. Right. Oh.
Cringe.
Oh, me too. It's like,
That makes no sense.
No. So
Sorry, that makes no sense.
I guess this would be like Rina says these are false gods that we're trying to be like. And she mentions that in some cycling classes, the students would be fighting over to win the heart of the instructor. And the company was like, this is a good thing. You should want your students, your fitness students should want to be with you or to be you. That's what your job is. And I'm like, yikes. And then she talks about all of these like catty fights that people are having over, the instructor looked at me, not you, and I got his number and you didn't. So that's not the community I want to get
I
involved.
might have been looking for something other than how well you're being well.
Yeah. There you go. Keep that going. That brings up the idea of two examples that she threw in here. One, in the fitness industry, there's a activewear that goes along with it. You have to wear the right clothes at the gym. So there's a brand named Lululemon. However you say that. Yes.
Lululemon.
You got it. Okay. Well, their mission was everyone's right to be well. That's their mission.
Okay. That's a mission?
The disclaimer is, except the outsourced Bangladesh female factory workers who were beaten, overworked, and abused. So, the consistency in their mission was broken somewhat.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the Soul Cycle. Came out of the Soho House. Soho to me is South Houston Street up in New York, right? And so that must be where they were. But these two women got together from Colorado and somewhere else, and they had a tradition of being outside. So they thought empowerment and lifestyle could go together. We can empower people. And we're going to do a really radical thing. We're not going to sell gym memberships. It's just a pay per class type of thing, which I think there's some models around here. Isn't Planet Fitness a pay-per-view? I don't know. I don't think you have to sign up for months.
No.
At the YMCA, I think you join for a year.
Oh,
those kinds of
Planet
things.
Fitness has a monthly.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a pay per class. Well, anyway, they were going to do the pay per class and make it so good you would come back and do it again. And they were charging something like $28, which is not the high prices for these other things. But they were going to create evangelists. Now, that's a term out of the worship lexicon, right? Mm-hmm. Out of the religion world. And they were going to create a tribal feeling, which is also maybe like a congregation. And they were going to fill the void, which is something that, religions or faith centers do as well. But they had a fall from grace because all that was good, except they started dumping staff erratically, and they were turning a blind eye to inappropriate behaviors, like you just mentioned about the guy getting in with the girls or whatever, and berating people and being just what I would call a jerk, but worse than just jerky behaviors. But then that made me think of the Catholic Church and the trouble they had with turning a blind eye to the pedophiles within their organization. So this happens in organizations, but agreement with mission and practice of the mission statements and actually being accountable to them. When you forget to do that, I think that's when we fall into trouble in our corporate structures. Because there are a lot of corporations who have good missions, but the practice is, and when you talk to people in there, they say they're not doing that.
Right.
That's where, I guess, individual accountability and whistleblowing and that kind of thing show up, and it's hard to do that. Like saying, like, we're not being true to our mission here.
Right. It doesn't make the mission bad.
Mm-mm.
It's bad choices and not, like you said, calling people out for what they're doing and holding them accountable.
And then correcting it.
And then,
which is what the Catholic Church did. I mean, that Pope stepped down, and said, I can't go on, with this background here. So we had 2 popes for a while, which I'm not Catholic, but I found it very interesting how their organization is dealing with that, because this idea that we seek to understand why we're here on earth is more of a philosophical and religious question. And I was really interested in Rina confronting her own journey, because she said, I grew up Jewish, but it sounded like she'd left the fold and did not attend synagogue or practice much. But in the end of this tour through this wellness thing, she found that the synagogue was where she found her comfort. When her dad died, she went back to the traditions of, I tear my clothing, we cover the mirrors, we sit in Shiva, we get out and walk around the block at the end of the week and return to life. And all of that had meaning for her. She didn't find that in her gym group. She didn't find that. So her faith center is there, and I think when people walk away from their faith journey, they can return, which she seems like she has come back to her faith roots. I don't know if that's true or not, but I got a sense that maybe she was paying more attention to that and doing it with the good heart and the good things that come from those traditions and rituals and community that so many of us have given up on because of the bad examples, the bad people that were doing things in churches or other groups that turned you off. It's like, I can't buy that. That's not right. But just keeping the open mind to that we each have value, whoever we are, the way we are, comes to me from my faith journey, is that we are all loved for who we are, not who we could be or who we strive to imitate. And I think when we can get back to that center of I'm valued for who I am, the way I am, our health comes back into check a little bit. And the way that you look at the people around you comes into check as well. But anyway, that's my little soapbox.
No, that's good. That's good.
That was good.
I feel like
I'm preaching to you.
We're all craving that connection. And if you find that in your fitness group, then that's fantastic. But, you say
don't give up on them.
There's good and there's bad groups. So just, what kind of community do I have? And you can have more than one community to be involved in. Yeah,
and I think it's okay in your life journey to say, this group has died for me, and I'm moving to a new group, because all groups have a beginning and an end. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything has a beginning and an end. So don't grieve too long, but just do get reconnected.
And so the shady side of the cycling industry, though, I still think, I still believe in, I guess, the quote-unquote mission to bring music and community. And I feel like whether it's genuine or not, I'm not sure, but I feel the shift from fitness being, oh, come on, you've got to burn your calories, you've got to earn your next meal.
Boot camp.
All this, eating disorder jargon really coming through in our fitness classes, to more of breathe in, breathe out what doesn't serve you today, be here, be in this, so
the meditative practices.
Done the Peloton a couple of times, and these are the kind of messages I'm hearing. So it's I'm not opposed to that. Mm-mm. You tell me to breathe in and breathe out what's not serving me. I'll listen to that. I don't want to hear that I'm going to burn this many calories. And
I can go eat that donut.
Yeah, or that I have to be a certain way and that's why I'm on the bike.
Right.
No, don't tell me that. So I see this shift, and like I said, I don't know if it's genuine or not, if it's just the
fitness
industry.
But if you take the goodness from it, it could be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of look at wrapping this up. She had a guide for the perplexed at the end of her book. If she's confused you and made you hate everything and think, I don't know who to believe, she said, well, I got you a little guide, because now that you're perplexed. And the one thing is to remember that one size doesn't fit all. Like we were just saying, if that works for you, do it.
Right.
Because you're finding something good in there. And she said that she can't tell you exactly what happens, but something happens. It's kind of a nebulous something good happened. I don't know what it was, but it worked for me. So I'm going to do that again. That's probably an okay signal to follow.
Right.
The other thing is to check your biases. Are you hanging on to something because you love it and you heard it for a long time? And that's what I think in my reading, I was confronting some biases and saying, I need to think about that. Be wary of emotionally manipulative language.
Oh, that's a big one. And I think that's what we've talked about a lot in the last couple episodes, is that wellness is now something that marketing has a hold of, and through that can be some very manipulative messages.
Particularly if you're on social media, you're going to see people you never heard of saying stuff to you and looking really excited and, and you think, oh, I want to be like that. Well, you do? Okay. But it's manipulative at some level because they're trying to get you into their following so they can get you into the conversation and get you into buying what they got.
Right. And they kind of do sell the one-size-fits-all often, is that, well, this worked for this person.
Me, it'll work for all of you.
Yeah, especially the gurus. Okay.
Okay, then demand evidence. So, show me how many people that's worked for. Show me how you came to that conclusion. It's okay to have that conversation. And we've heard that from Dr. Cheney in his Slaying the
I was going to say that.
Go
back and listen to that one, because he kind of tells you how to look for the evidence, what to do.
Yep. Consider your sources, which is something he also recommends, and the credentials and the expertise of the sources. Just do they have a depth of understanding, or is this something new to them? Analyze the intentions. Are they trying to sell you something? But then again, I say, well, doctors and lawyers and everybody sells something. So just be aware that you're buying. You may not know you're buying, but you are. So do you want to make that purchase or not based on these other elements? Is it necessary? Explain the feelings of lack. Is this thing really necessary for me, or am I just doing something because they told me to do it? And I heard something on social media that I learned. Do you all know what a Stanley mug is? I never heard of it. Evidently, it's a hot new mug, like these things we carry our cold water in and stuff. And it has a handle on it. It costs like $60, and they're the hot item that everybody has to have now to be cool.
Oh,
interesting. So, why do you need a mug? I mean, just get a bottle and put some water in it.
Sounds like the next fad.
Yeah. So, is it necessary or not?
Right.
It's Stanley because it's Stanley, the company that
outdoor
makes
camping goods,
or
what's
tape
that?
measures.
The Otter is the Otter the other one, or what's that other?
Yeti.
Yeah. That you got to have a Yeti. So I think this is knocking them off the block.
Yeah, well, but Yeti actually works.
Well, so is this one.
Yeah, so I don't know. I've never heard of this before. Yeah,
it's a good product. Well, now you need a Stanley mug. Go get you one.
I'm good.
Yeah. All right. Evaluate the root stressors. She didn't include the idea that maybe multiple pharmaceuticals could be stressing your body and you don't need as many prescription drugs. I talked to somebody on Saturday who said she had been on 80 prescriptions in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, why? But okay. She's not on them anymore. She found a way to get whatever, bring it down. Science is always evolving. We mentioned that in one of our episodes because, people think science is absolute. It's not. We learn continually and modify our ideas about things. And so we have to get comfortable with that. And coming through COVID, we're going through that right now with these Pfizers and the boosters and the complications and the strokes that people are having, and because we don't have the data of what we've done. So it'll be really interesting to see what we learn from that experiment.
Well, and she mentioned, she interviewed a scientist who had a good point that, when people use fear-mongering against us, to remember that just about everything has a risk to it.
Mm-hmm.
So just because we're pointing out one risk doesn't mean that that's life or death. Just look
and risk benefit. There could be some benefits even with the risk.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then loosen your grip. Take a cue from meditation. Which you just talked about. If I'm in there, they tell me to breathe out what doesn't serve me. And you're taking that tip. So those are the guides for the perplexed. And I think she also had a really good conclusion in her book about, pseudoscience, hyper-consumerist ethos is muddying the waters. So So this was a thought provoker for me. I would recommend it. And as I said, I hope she will come and talk with us.
I do too. Like I said previously, that I really enjoyed her perspective as a journalist to kind of uncover all sides of wellness. And I saw a review that was like, oh, great, now I'm going to feel guilty for taking care of myself. And I think, maybe that person could have checked her bias a little bit too and just kept reading, because it just shows all sides. It doesn't mean that wellness is bad. And like we've said, religion has its issues. Everything's going to have its issues. Just
we're human.
Be aware of it and
do the best you can.
And I think that's what's great about Rina's book, is just bringing the awareness to all sides of wellness, the good, the bad, and the in-between.
Yeah, and shout out to her, because I think you got in touch with her, and she's in the UK promoting her book right now, and so that's why she's not with us.
That's right. She's currently touring UK for the UK version of this, which I'm
Lucky
curious.
Her.
I'm curious how different it is, because she does talk a lot about America's problem, so I wonder how it's different for UK or not.
Yeah, and she did not address children, and I think I have a suspicion she might get into that. What do we do developmentally to our kids to help them have healthy lives? I mean, she talked about our responsibilities and the history of all that as women and household family leaders. But I think there's going to be more coming from her in this discipline. So we're going to be reading some more books, y'all. Stick with us. It looks like we're committed to the Health Geeks. We're going on for another year, it looks like.
Excellent. Well, but... and again, we want to thank our listeners in Estonia,
absolutely,
and Mongolia. I mean, this may sound
our international readers. We like it.
Don't take this as we're joking about it. We are serious about our listeners wherever they are, whether they're in the United States, whether they're in a foreign country. Like I said, Estonia is one of the happiest and healthiest countries there are.
When I actually looked them up, and I thought, I need to know more about this country, and it's in a beautiful spot on the globe, and I'd kind of like to maybe see it sometime. And someone from Estonia has moved into our community, and I have a contact, so I'm hoping to meet her. So I'll tell you more about that when I make the connection.
Oh, how cool.
Bring her on.
That's what I was going to say. She may come talk to the rest of you all out there.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear from some of our listeners. Is there a phone number they can call in?
Yes, you can call 336-422-6862. If you old like Eleanor and myself, and
watch it, buddy.
And myself, back when people used to use words in their thing, it was 336-422-NUM 6862. So yes,
leave us a little voicemail.
That's right, and you can
request a book.
You can do any of that.
Yeah.
And there's emails.
I mean, a book for us to read, not one for us to send to you.
Yeah. So
right.
Comments
Thanks for clarifying.
Comments at healthgeeksbookclub.com. And or healthgeekspodcast.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do that again one more time.
All right. Comments at healthgeekspodcast.com.
There you go. And I'm Eleanor at 360health4u.com.
And I'm Kristen Norton with Well Balanced Nutrition. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading, everybody.
Bye.
The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and are not necessarily those of our distributors or hosting company. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the express written consent of Kristen and Eleanor.